However, in the history books, our teachers have told us that rats carrying fleas from China aboard wooden ships brought the plague from China to Europe, and it's total bullshit. That's not the truth. I go by what the historians were saying that were alive at the time, and not what we're being told today. So organic materials being fallen from the sky is nothing new. Charles Fort documented many of them. But in 1902, which was the last year of the Phoenix, this is what happened all around the world. And in some incidents in Oceania, there were ship captains that had to call all hands on deck just to push with brooms and whatever tool they could find all the red mud off their ships before their ships capsized. And these are written in the captain's logs. That's how bad it was. And Australia was one of the hardest hit for this red dust phenomena in 1901 and 1902.
So Jay, what have you? How are you explaining the red dust? What explanation has that got?
Jason doesn't know that question or that answer. But I think I know, and I think it comes from above the firmament, because if I'm right, if the firmament is the fourth phase of water and excludes everything but water to the positive part of the water, which would be on the other side of the firmament in the deep, all that red dust would build up there. So, as I've explained, you've got them trying to collapse the Earth's magnetic field. And if all that red dust is on the other side of the firmament, as soon as they collapse the firmament, that Earth's magnetic field and all that red dust that's gathered up there will fall to the Earth. Once it falls to the Earth and lands on the Earth, that will create different pressures in different areas of the tectonic plates, and this will create mega earthquakes, mega volcanoes, mega tsunamis. The whole world is in danger, big time. I'm going to show what I mean by the fourth phase of water from a talk from Dr. Pollock. So, here goes. Now, as you know, water has three phases: solid, liquid and gas. But I bet you didn't know there is another phase, and it's in between a solid and a liquid. Here is an expert on the fourth phase of water.
Also, the phases of water. Now, we've all learned that there's a solid phase, a liquid phase, and a vapor phase. However, 100 years ago, there was some idea that there might be a fourth phase somewhere in between a solid and a liquid. Sir William Hardy, a famous physical chemist, 100 years ago exactly, professed that there was actually a fourth phase of water, and this water was kind of more ordered than other kinds of water, and in fact had a gel-like consistency. So the question arose to us, you know, all of this was forgotten because people began, as methods improved, to begin to study molecules instead of ensembles of molecules. And people forgot about the collectivity of water molecules and began looking, the same as in biology, began looking at individual molecules and lost sight of the collection. So we thought, we're going to look at this because we had some idea that it's possible that this missing link, this fourth phase, might actually be the missing link so that we can understand the phenomena regarding water that we don't understand. So we started by looking somewhere between a solid and a liquid. And the first experiments that we did that get us going is we took a gel, that's the solid, and we put it next to water. And we added some particles to the water because we had the sense that something, the particles would show us something. And sure enough, you can see that what happened is that the particles began moving away from the interface between the gel and the water, and they just kept moving and moving and moving, and they wound up stopping.
And that is what I'm talking about. The exclusion zone moves all the bits to the positive part of the water, which would be on the other side of the firmament to us. So the build-up of mud on that side is going to be a lot greater. So if they collapse the earth field, all that is going to come crashing down on the earth.
Stopping at a distance that's, well, roughly the size of one of your hairs. Now that may seem small, but by molecular dimensions, that's practically infinite. It's a huge dimension. So we began studying the properties of this zone, and we called it, for obvious reasons, the exclusion zone, because practically everything you'd put there would get excluded, would get expelled from the zone as it built up, or instead of exclusion zone, EZ for short. And so we found that the kinds of materials that would create or nucleate this kind of zone, not just gels, but we found that practically every water-loving or so-called hydrophilic surface could do exactly that, creating the EZ water. And as the EZ water builds, it would expel all the solutes or particles, whatever, into the bulk water. And we began learning about the properties, and we've spent now quite a few years looking at the properties. And so it looked something like this. You have a material next to water, and these sheets of EZ layers begin to build, and they build and build, and you just keep building up one by one. And so if you look at the structure of each one of these planes, you can see that it's a honeycomb, hexagonal kind of structure, a bit like ice, but not ice. And if you look at it carefully, you can see the molecular structure. So of course it consists of hydrogen and oxygen because it's built from water. But actually, they're not water molecules. If you start counting the number of hydrogens and the number of oxygens, it turns out that it's not H2O. It's actually H3O2. So it is possible that there's water that's not H2O, some phase of water.
The hexagon shape is the strongest shape in nature. A high voltage was sent through this water and a 4 centimetre bridge was created. Now, if the power is there to scale that 4 centimetre bridge up to the size of the dome, I believe it will become the impenetrable dome. What makes this EZ water grow stronger and thicker is the sun and infrared light, but is that enough power to create the dome? Let's just say it is, and for some strange reason they want to. What is it Hillary Clinton kept saying in her campaign for the White House?
I know we have still not shattered that highest and hardest glass ceiling, but someday someone will, and hopefully sooner than we might think right now.
What was that, Hillary?
I can't believe we just put the biggest crack in that glass ceiling yet.
I just realised the reason she's getting a lot of people cheering her is because they will all be from her dimension. So once they collapse that ceiling on top of us, that's time for them to have the holidays. No more acting and tricking us to believe bullshit. So yeah, that's why they're all clapping and buzzing for her, saying that. Sneaky bastards. Okay, I'm going to call it the end of part 2. And part 3 on why would they lie. I'm going to go into it a bit deeper on how they're deleting the Earth's magnetic field, because it is more than just a magnetic frequency. More science to it. I'm going to also talk a little bit about myself, my life, and what I would like to accomplish from all this with your help. So yeah, that'll be something to look forward to.